Evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Tonight, you're tuned in for a special panel presentation on omegas. Panelists include our very own Adored Beast Apothecary founder and formulator, Julie Anne Lee DCH, lipid expert, Jenna Ritter, PhD, animal nutritionist, Sarah Griffiths, and I'm Steph B., your host. My colleague and Adored Beast product specialist, Kaylin Hollywood, is here helping out in the chat area. And we've got our colleague, Suzanne Reed, live on Facebook to give a hand to anyone watching the live stream. While everyone makes their way in, do me a favor here and adjust your chat settings to everyone so we can all join the conversation this evening. One more thing before we get started, please let us know where you're joining us from tonight. And if you feel like it, add something that you're grateful for. Okay, here's what we plan to cover tonight. Julie's going to talk a little bit about why Adored Beast doesn't have a fish oil. She's also been quite quiet about the topic, and she'd like to address that as well. We're going to talk a little bit about the word sustainability and what that means. And then we're going to dive into your Q&A with our panelist experts. All right, so it's about that time. We should dive in. Who's ready?
Dive in. Dive in, haha. Fish oil, oceans. Very good. All right. Hi, everybody. Should we wait for a few more minutes to make sure everyone's here? Or I know it's like 8:03, but it's just the things going up pretty quickly. I just don't want people to miss it. Why don't we just give it five minutes, like just 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Make sure that everybody's, let's see from the chat, BC, Alberta, everyone's so ready.
Mexico.
Hi,
Peter.
Julie, maybe you can tell us a little bit about why you started the product and what omegas mean to you and what kind of drove you down this path.
Well, I don't think it's been like I haven't been as vocal. I mean, for like I think with the sustainability article, everybody knows that I have some pretty hardcore views on fish oil and sustainability, and just not just fish oil and not just sustainability of the oceans, but sustainability period. And I think that a big part of my vet clinic, we even had a little sign, I think you remember that, Sarah, about above all, do no harm. And a lot of times when people hear that was a major philosophy of Samuel Hahnemann, who was the founder, the medical doctor that founded homeopathy. And that was very intensely ingrained in me, but not from just when I went to school, but from my mom and my grandmother and just the way I was raised. And I never could figure out how that above all do no harm got compartmentalized into who was the leader of what was harmed and what wasn't harmed. And I always felt like at my clinic and just being in my mom's rescue, we never created a hierarchy of what was, my mom was supposed to just rescue dogs. And if something showed up on our doorstep, like a turtle with 3 legs or a whatever, like we wouldn't turn away, or a bat or anything like that. And I feel like that just moves through everything that I do, everything that I did in my practice in my vet hospital, and everything that I'm doing now with Adored Beast. And the older that I get, the more I'm actually concentrating and focusing on the bigger picture. And I know that, you know, from when I started in like 1994, the word holistic medicine in people and in animals has grown into a multi-trillion dollar industry. And in the last, well, since I actually opened Adored Beast Apothecary, I was very surprised to see that everybody's about nature, but they are natural, but they get confused what's natural and what's nature. And they're very different things. And anything can really be considered natural. And I think natural is used a lot as a marketing tool, the same with sustainability, but sustainability with anything. So I think that the core thing with Adored Beast is every single time I want to help an animal, every single time I do a formulation for a cat, a dog, a horse, it really doesn't matter. I don't just look at how do I help that animal, but what is that product doing, affecting negatively or positively to the whole environment? Because we're all, in my opinion, always we're in this together. And that a company that supports our entire team and is financially supported by Adored Beast. And I think we have to, as a community and as a larger industry, we have to really step back and go, how much are we giving back? So we're creating all of these great products and we're hiring people and we're making money. And I'm not talking about just Adored Beast, I'm talking about the industry in general. How many of us are really paying very, very, very close attention to the detail and what we're doing to the environment and how that affects us on a much bigger level, how it affects and I always use this example when people were using shark cartilage for cancer. Sarah, I think you remember that probably at the clinic, and people would come to me because I did a lot of cancer and wonder why I wouldn't prescribe shark cartilage. And for me, it was just an oxymoron to do something like that to a shark to save a pet. And so that's when I really, really, really started researching medicinal mushrooms. And because I felt like there was an alternative, and not only was there an alternative, but I was getting way better results with medicinal mushrooms than they were with shark cartilage. So I have been pretty active since I did a lot of work with, dogs naturally and stuff. And I've been pretty active about my thoughts on fish oil and how not only is it not sustainable, but I feel like it's really not natural. I really don't feel like fish oil in the consumption that we need to consume it in the amounts we need to consume it in is natural. It's maybe comes from a natural source, but the amount of fish that need to die and be processed in order to create a fish oil is definitely 100% not natural. There's something very desperately wrong that we need as humans to consume the amount of fish oil that's recommended for dogs, for cats, for people, for horses, whatever, because there's something underlying, there's something missing, there's something wrong. And that's why I'm also really digging into, soil and forest products and things that come from nature that probably will help to feed us to balance out the underlying issue of why we actually need so much fish oil. So I've been very, very active and open about not, my opinion, like I don't use fish oil. I don't use fish oil on my animals. And I talked a lot about phytoplankton and how phytoplankton was how fish got omega-3s, and that if they didn't eat phytoplankton, they don't naturally produce omega-3, just like we don't, or just like our dogs don't and our cats. And it was and still am a big component that it's something to look at if you're feeling like you don't want a fish oil for many different reasons, including environmental and just your philosophy. But then I was, really challenged with that. And I couldn't come to the table with what I really felt like would give you guys a solution. And the one thing that I try really hard to not do at Adored Beast is make people feel guilty or make them feel like they're doing a bad job. And I know that everyone out there is doing the very best that they can. And I know everybody loves their animals and they would do anything for them. So I just kind of got quiet for a while. I've been working with Dalhousie University with phytoplankton in the food science department with phytoplankton and algae for about how many years, Sarah? Like
4.
For a long time, trying to find something that would replace fish oil. And it's a long process, and I wanted to really produce something that I could stand behind. So I just shut up. I didn't say anything anymore, and I kind of got very quiet, and until now. And now I feel like we have found something that I can honestly, from my heart, truly say is sustainable and without losing any health benefits whatsoever. In fact, possibly more health benefits from a perspective of it doesn't have toxins and it doesn't have a lot of the solvents that regular fish oil has. And there's lots and lots of different things that you can ask us more about, and we're going to dig into it a little bit deeper. So as we were doing this, I was connected with a really great company, and we'll go into that a little bit more of how we moved into this oil about, I guess, almost two years ago now. Right? We've been working with them and looking at this. So we will get into that a bit more, but the whole thing behind this was strictly because I was determined to find an alternative to fish oil because of my strong beliefs that we are at a point right now where when we talk about sustainability, it doesn't really exist. When it comes to the ocean, if we were trying to do true sustainability 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, we might be in a very different situation and talking about all this cool stuff that's super great for sustainability, but we're way past that. And we need to all take a really hard look at what we're doing to the oceans and what we can do to help, but not lose, like I said, not be worried that you're going to have a heart attack because you're not getting omega-3s, and not worried that your dogs are going to have joint disease because they're not getting enough omega-3 fatty acids. So there you go. That's where we're at, and I'm super excited about it. And I think that everybody else and everybody on here is pretty excited. There's a lot of people that have got behind this since we've launched it. So it's been great. And I have to thank everybody for that. And one last thing I wanted to say just before we really get into this is that this product is on the market to try and make a shift around anything that's negative. And negative with people, negative within the industry, negative with the oceans. I'm not bringing this out to make another product, say that another product isn't good, because that's not what I want to do. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, between the three of us tonight, we want to give you the education and all the work that we've done in the last almost 2 years, so that you guys can feel comfortable. And we're not going to tone it down because that would just be ridiculous, because I'm trying to help do something with the oceans. But it is in no way, shape, or form out there to make anybody else's product look bad. And like I said, everyone does the best. There's best that we can do. And this is just new. It's a new thing. It's a new, it's an incredible product. And I'm super proud to be able to bring it to you guys. And that's it. Okay.
We're thrilled that it's here, Julie. I reached out to our Facebook community and we crowdsourced some questions that kind of help educate the audience and help us learn about the product. So if we can get started with that, that would be awesome.
Sure.
So I believe this one may be Jenna.
Okay.
Someone wanted to know what the calories are in a serving of Potent-Sea.
So the serving size does vary by weight of your pet, but 1 ml of the 1 milliliter of the product has 8 calories in it.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Oh, be careful. No, I'm kidding.
There's another question here about refining the product. Are we refining it ourselves or are we bottling the final product? Julie, if you don't mind, I've got the answer here.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
We have partnered with a manufacturing plant. It specializes in the production and refinement of DHA and EPA from algae. The process begins with the initial algae cell culture and results in highly purified DHA and EPA oil. The microalgae are grown in fermentation tanks, free from outside contaminants. No solvents are used in the extraction, only water.
And
All right.
And I would add to that, the reason that we've been working so closely and sort of partnered up with this particular oil is because a lot, not all, but a lot of algae cells are genetically modified, and this one isn't. So that was really something that was important to us. And so the oil, the cells that they're growing them from is a non-GMO.
Thank you, Julie. Sarah, we're going to swing over to you. Can this product, Potent-Sea Omega-3, be used in a keto cancer diet as a fat additive?
Yes, as part of the fat additive you can. If you're trying to do a true keto diet, if you're trying to get your pet into ketosis, we always recommend that you do that with your veterinarian. And I think, Steph, you have a link, maybe you can throw it in the chat for everyone, with really specific instructions from a amazing group of veterinarians in the US. They're called a Keto Pet Sanctuary. And they're a group of vets that just does keto and cancer patients. And they have a whole ebook on their website. And they show exactly what proportions of what types of fats to be using to help your veterinarian to get your pet into ketosis, and then also how your vet can check via blood work that your pet is indeed going into ketosis. So it is something that you want to do with your vet. And but yes, it's a really clean source, and especially for animals with cancer, it's a premium product for adding your EPA and DHA, which is part of the keto diet.
Fantastic, thank you. So I've got another one here, Sarah. This is going to be for you. Can you talk just quickly about dogs with pancreatitis? Would this be a product that they should include in their diet?
Yeah, so again, pancreatitis is, a lot of these animals are really fat sensitive. So if you have a really sensitive animal that has reacted to fish oil in the past, this is a cleaner version of this supplement. So because it doesn't have those solvents and heavy metals, there may be less of a chance of that happening. But if you were to try it out, you would always want to start really low and then work up very slowly, and also check with your vet to see if there's any contraindications with anything that they are doing with your animal at the if they are having flare-ups or they've just had a flare-up.
Thanks.
Yeah, and for animals that have had pancreatitis in the past, I think, we talked about this too, like every single animal that has pancreatitis is the root cause is something different. It's a really, really, we hear so much about, pancreatitis, and people think it's just grouped into this one group. There are so many reasons for pancreatitis in dogs, like so many. So, first of all, make sure that you're looking at the root cause of why your dog is getting pancreatitis or your cat is getting pancreatitis. and make sure that it's being treated as an individual and not just, you know, muscled into one big group of pancreatitis. Because, you know, we talked about this before. It's like one of the big things with this algae oil is it's anti-inflammatory, right? It's anti-inflammatory effects. And when we were talking about some stuff, Sarah and I and Jenna, you know, anytime you see itis, it's inflammatory. And so ideally, you know, once the dog is feeling better or the cat's feeling better and it's not in like an acute crisis, to get them on something that has strong anti-inflammatory properties is really important. So working with your vet with this is an oil that we would feel is supportive, especially because, as Sarah mentioned, it doesn't have the solvents and it doesn't have some of the really, really harsh chemicals that they use to extract fish oil. And it's the way it's done, and in the type of bottle, specific type of bottle that it's in, the rancidity level is a lot less. We don't worry about it as much as we do in some other fish oils. So it would be great to talk to your vet and try to introduce it, and really, like Sarah said, is just start off with super small amounts and see how they do.
Excellent. Thanks, Julie. The next question I think will be for you and Jenna. And it's a big one. A lot of people in the community have been asking about this. Can you please talk about the difference between Phyto Synergy and Potent-Sea?
Okay, well, I'll let Jenna start, and then I can ramble on about one of my favorite things.
All right. So Phyto Synergy is made from whole cell phytoplankton. So it's these teeny tiny little single celled organisms that are grown photosynthetically. So they need light to grow. And where they're a whole cell, they do have EPA in there, but they also have a lot of other nutrients in there as well. So they do have some amino acids, as well as some micronutrients that provide nutrition. So Potent-Sea is also grown from a microalgae, but the microalgae used for Potent-Sea is it actually is fermented. It's grown in the dark, and it produces high amounts of lipids, specifically EPA and DHA. So with Potent-Sea, the oil is actually extracted from the shell material. So you're just getting an oil as opposed to a whole cell microorganism.
Yeah. And, you know, we're still working on our research with Phyto Synergy, but it's Phyto Synergy it's more of a food supplement, like a whole food, not even a supplement, but a whole food organism. So when a fish eats phytoplankton or algae, they're eating that whole cell in its entirety. And in that little cell is a whole little world. It's like a complete body. And when it's ingested through your dog, your cat, your horse, us, or a whale or whatever, it's a cell to cell nutrient. So the cool thing about Phyto Synergy is that, and I'm going to say this even with our oils, when we talk about things, and we're going to probably talk about bioavailability, especially with Jenna, we don't really, when it comes to bioavailability, it depends on every single individual and how their gut and their intestines and everything is working. You know, if they've had gut trauma, if they're, you know, what their pH is like, the list goes on and on, not what they're eating. So though we can talk about bioavailability and look at studies, where these studies are coming from, you know, small amounts of people and small amounts of animals, considering the world. When it comes to Phyto Synergy, it is, like I said, it's cell to cell, and it doesn't have to be ingested through the digestive system. It actually it's smaller than a red blood cell, so it can go through the mucous membranes and be digested prior to going through the whole digestive process, so that its bioavailability is really high. And it does work from cell to cell rather than having to go through the digestive tract. So it's very, very, very different. It's very, very similar, but it's very, very different. So Potent-Sea, exactly like Jenna said, it is extracted, the oil is extracted from this specific species of algae that's really, really high in DHA and EPA, the same way as the oil is extracted from a fish. So it's not in its whole form. It's not like a whole fish, and it's not like a whole algae. So that's basically the difference too.
Anyone else have something to add? All righty. Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Jenna. There's another question here about if we have any studies or data to show that this form of EPA and DHA is absorbable or bioavailable. I'm sorry, you just touched on that a bit.
Yeah.
And asking because they know that all plant-based protein is not a biologically available form of protein and amino acids for dogs.
I could take this one if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the fatty acids in Potent-Sea are triglycerides. So you have EPA as a triglyceride and DHA as a triglyceride. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with lipid chemistry, a triglyceride is basically a glycerol backbone that's like this, and it has 3 little fatty acids attached to it. So that is how your triglyceride is how lipids are stored in your body. That's how they're found most commonly in nature. So the EPA and DHA in this product are triglycerides, and that is the same as for fish as well. So the bioavailability of these triglycerides are the same from regardless of source. So that is something that has been demonstrated in human studies.
And then I'll add to that too, is that when the question was about plant-based protein, algae is not a plant, and neither is Phyto Synergy. We refer to it as a marine plant, but it's not. It's not a photosynthesis plant like grass or vegetables, things like that. It is a single cell organism. I know we keep going back to that, but that's what it is. And that's why everybody has to try to remember that, because that's very important. It gets sort of shoved into the plant category, and it's not a plant. There's a ton, like for let's say Phyto Synergy again. Phyto Synergy has one of the most diverse, incredible amino acid profiles I've ever seen. So when we talk about proteins and we talk about amino acids and we talk about stuff like that, algae and phytoplankton is a class of their own. And we have to keep remembering, because it's this little cell and it's this organism, that is how fish and dogs and cats and us get omega-3 and DHA. So an EPA and DHA. So it is in a class in itself. So it's really not plant-based.
I'll just add too, we do have a awesome blog on omegas and what the differences are, because there are omega-3s that come from plants,
yeah,
and then there are ones that come from technically animals or algae as well. And there are different types of omega-3s. So the most common one that you'll hear about that comes from plants, like flax oil and other plant oils, is ALA, which is alpha linoleic acid, and that has to be converted. So that's a completely different process within your metabolism to get that into a form of EPA and DHA that your body can use. It can also be used as energy in its entirety, but animals have a really hard time converting it into EPA and DHA. So when you're using the algae oil, it's already in that form. So the algae itself is converting it and actually giving us that EPA and DHA in the form that it's most bioavailable. So hope that makes sense. There is a blog about that as well. I think it's quite new on our blog, which explains that a little more in detail.
Thanks, Sarah. I just shared it to the chat here for everyone that wants to copy that for later on. Another question here, Jenna, I think you could start this one. For clarity, could you talk about exactly how much EPA and DHA as separate values are in one dropper of the Potent-Sea, excuse me. It seems like there is way more DHA than EPA. Is that correct? We are going to, yes, that's it. Thank you.
All right, I can speak to that. So on the label, you'll see that EPA and DHA are listed together. And the reason for that is that oil from algae is a natural product. So because it's from a living organism, there is some natural variation from batch to batch as the cells grow. It is the nature of natural things. So when you look at this, the amount of EPA per mil will always be at least 140 milligrams, and the amount of DHA will always be at least 282 milligrams in 1 mil, but you'll notice that does not add up to 517. So the individual amounts of the fatty acids will fluctuate to get to the 517, but they will never be below 140 milligrams of EPA and 282 milligrams of DHA. So because we know that there is variance from batch to batch, we made the decision to list EPA and DHA as a total. But it is correct, there is more DHA in this product than there is EPA, and that is the nature of marine oils, of algal oils. They do tend to be higher in DHA. Having an algal oil with EPA is actually quite unique. Luckily, there has been some research that came out actually in 2019, some really, really groundbreaking research that showed that supplementation with DHA and no EPA actually does increase plasma levels of EPA by up to 130%, which is really interesting. And what's really cool about this is that the researchers were able to use carbon-13 isotopic abundance. So what they did, they put little tags basically on the supplement that they were giving their people, and they were able to see that the increase in EPA wasn't because the body was converting DHA into EPA. It was actually a change in how EPA was metabolized in the body. So it is some really great information on how DHA intake can actually increase your plasma levels of EPA as well. So definitely some cool stuff happening out there.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we're doing too, like with the Phyto Synergy as well on top of this, is that's what makes me so excited, is because I feel like we don't even have a clue what it does. Like I think it's like this whole little world, just exactly what you said when we were looking at that. It's very exciting because it's a whole new world that we're looking at compared to just fish. And the fact that how it increases the blood serum levels is fascinating to me, because I do believe that that's the reason why fish need to eat it in its whole form in order to produce it the way they do. So I think getting it this way, we're even getting closer to our real ability to absorb it in its true form. So I'm excited.
Thank you, Julie. Christine, I see you're here with us this evening. Christine sent in a question. She's given her dog omega-3 for years for the skin and heart. She has early stage MVD now. Oh, yeah, MVD now. And I know you already touched on this a little bit, but can we go into the benefits that omega-3 Potent-Sea has for the heart?
Yeah, I think Sarah and Jenna can talk about that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of research that's been done specifically on the cardiovascular effects of DHA in particular, also EPA, because they're usually given together. But DHA in particular is extremely, extremely well known to increase cardiovascular abilities, even in athletes and human athletes. And there are quite a few animal studies as well. I think, Steph, I don't think I got those to you, but I can certainly, anyone who wants to read some of those studies, I can send those along. There's probably too many to name. And it is also one of the most commonly accepted in veterinary medicine. This is something that I think it's been so studied that at this point, veterinarians are even recommending it as part of their, as part of their care plans for their patients. So it's certainly something that is, I think, really widely accepted now. And in this form that Julie has found for us, it is the cleanest version, I think, that you could get, and also has that added benefit of not harming the ocean at all. So Jenna, you can probably, you might even have some studies on hand.
I do have some studies on hand, but I can tell you, I'll start with a bit of information on humans first, because the way humans metabolize fatty acids is very, very similar to how dogs metabolize fatty acids. So oftentimes you will see in early studies, dogs are actually used as a model for human heart health. And there've been more studies on human heart health with omega-3 than just about any other natural product. So there have been a few meta-analyses. There's one that looked at 800 published articles, which included almost 150,000 participants. And they found that omega-3 supplementation, specifically EPA and DHA, reduce cardiovascular mortality and improve cardiovascular outcomes. There have been further studies on that that also supported that conclusion. In dogs, there have been a number of studies, and it is recommended for cardiovascular health in dogs, but supplementation with EPA and DHA for dogs with MVD has shown that you can actually increase the left atrial diameter decrease your diameter of your left atrium. So there is some great studies out there, and it's very, very positive. So it's certainly something that has a lot of evidence to support it.
Yeah, and I think she's wondering too, does the omega-3 have the same benefits for the heart? Does plant omega-3 have the same benefits?
Yes. So this goes back to what Sarah mentioned earlier, that when people hear plant omega-3, usually they're thinking terrestrial plants, so plants that grow in the ground. And in our lives, that plant omega-3 is usually flax, which is a source of ALA. So ALA does not have the same benefits as EPA and DHA, which are found in fish and algae and squid. ALA has to be converted by the body to EPA and DHA, and that conversion rate is really low. In humans, it's around 3%. In dogs, it's about the same. So even if you're taking buckets and buckets of ALA, only a very small amount of it becomes a useful fatty acid for your body. But the EPA and DHA that are found in the algae oil do have the same benefits as the EPA and DHA that are found in other marine oils, and would have the same positive benefits for heart health.
Great.
All right. Sandy, I see you here with us this evening. Jenna, I'm gonna push this question your way as well. She's giving omega-3s a few different ways. She's feeding sardines a few times a week, green lip mussels a few times a week, and using a product called Nordic Naturals for the days that she doesn't feed sardines. Can you give too much omega-3s, and what would that do to a dog or perhaps a cat?
So there are safe upper limits for omega-3 per day. So for dogs, the safe upper limit is 2,800 milligrams per day. So to put that into perspective, an entire can of sardines, usually, unless you've got a really giant can, usually contains between 1,500 and 2,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA. A teaspoon of most fish oils, a mill of most fish oils that you'd be feeding your pet are going to contain around 260 milligrams of EPA plus DHA, and that does vary depending on the product. But it's great to see that the dog is getting a varied diet, but there is an upper limit. Sarah, do you want to talk about adverse effects, or do you want me to
Sure.
speak to that?
Yeah, so usually what we see when animals are getting too much, which is pretty hard to do, usually it will manifest itself in either oily stools or loose stools, and also sometimes they can get really like their fur can get really greasy. So it has a lot of residue on it. It's sticky. It's kind of sticking together. So if you're feeding too much over a long period of time, which generally happens mostly with oils because they're so concentrated, then you would, if you were to see that happening, then you would want to dial it back. That is relative to if your animal is deficient or has been deficient and you've really upped it really quickly, sometimes that can happen. And also if you're feeding a raw diet versus a dry food diet, that can change the amount of EPA and DHA that they actually need to have. So it's always best when you're trying out a new omega-3 to just slowly add it in and to slowly work it up. And a lot of people will do a loading period where they'll do a higher dose for 6 to 8 weeks. And then you would bring it back down to kind of a more maintenance type of dose. So that's usually what people do. But that oily fur or greasy stools are two of the main things that you can see with your eyes that are good indicators that you might be feeding too much.
And the other thing that you don't want to be feeding too much is the negative stuff from the ocean, right? So mercury and there's so much in the ocean. Mercury is such a little tiny even piece now, but EPAs and so it's very unfortunate that fish are not the healthiest way to get it anymore. I mean, I think that they used to be, but they really aren't anymore. So when you're thinking about overdoing omegas, there's, like Sarah said, and Jenna said, there's an upper limit to it, but you also have to be thinking all the time of what else is in it. Like, what is it containing besides just the benefits? Sometimes overfeeding fish or feeding too much fish, you're looking at that toxic load of chemicals, even in whole fish. It's just really sad.
Absolutely. Thanks, Julie. Thank you, everyone. Here's a question that talks about allergies. Jenna, if you want to hop on this one. Carol is looking for a suggestion here for omega-3s for her dog who's allergic to just about all fish: salmon, sardines, whitefish. I spoke to her today, and the reaction, Julie, you asked me to follow up, was itching, biting the paws, biting the nails. That kind of was the symptomology. So Julie or Jenna, if you want to weigh in here, that would be super helpful.
Does it
Julie,
matter?
do you want to start? Yeah,
Sure.
you start. Yeah.
Okay. So if it's that, I would just want to make sure that it wasn't like anaphylactic and things like that. There is the plant, again, is different. The algae is different than everything that you've said here. So it's different than it's different than salmon, it's different than sardines, it's different than whitefish, it's different than I know you don't have it down there, but it's different than calamari. It's different. Oh, you do actually. I have calamari down here. It's a different source. And if it's itching compared to, I didn't want to say this if it was a, anaphylactic, and I say, oh, well, I would try it, but I would try it. If if it's not something that's so drastic, I would try it because it's definitely different. It's not the same as the ones that you're trying right now. And if you do that and you still are, determined or trying to make sure that your dog is getting some kind of omega-3s or DHAs and things like that. If you try the algae and she or he is still reactive, then I would probably abandon it for a while and use phytoplankton. And then I would also try doing everything humanly possible to reduce that protein reactivity. So a lot of times, moving away or staying away from something is a good thing to do until the body heals, but it's no way to look at health and healing in general, because we can't, if we don't heal the core issue of that reactivity or that sensitivity or even that allergy, if we don't go to that core issue, chances are in today's environment that they're going to continue to get allergic to whatever you're doing or whatever you're giving. That is the alternative. So if your animal's allergic to fish, or it's allergic to beef, or it's allergic to chicken, and you just keep removing it and you don't look at why it's sensitive or why it's reactive or allergic, you're going to keep getting things that they're going to become reactive and sensitive to. So I would try it and see, and if it doesn't work, then I would definitely be looking at, gut health and leaky gut syndrome and things like that, of why they are specifically sensitive to this, and then moving into something like phytoplankton, until you can dig deep and get your animal healed at a deeper level.
Thank you. Jenna, anything to add?
No, I think Julie covered it all.
Excellent. Sarah, nothing from you? All right. Okay, so before we get into the Q&A, I've got a question here. Julie, you may be able to help us out. Larry Pruden from Podega is asking, he would like to ask if there's an organization that you would recommend that helps preserve ocean life and phytoplankton and all these things that we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, if anyone hasn't watched Seaspiracy, I would highly, highly recommend that. I think it's it's just an amazing, amazing documentary to watch. It's like watching the most deepest undercover. I just love how things get layered and layered and layered. I would watch that first. You can become a follower of Seaspiracy, but also people look at them as being really hardcore. But the Sea Shepherds are an organization that are really educated and are really out there trying to make a difference in helping the ocean. Obviously, David Suzuki, he's been supporting that for a long, long time. But my two biggest things would be Sea Shepherds and get on and watch Seaspiracy and follow what they're doing. And Sarah's got something.
One more. So you guys probably all know who Sir David Attenborough is. So he also has a fund called the World Land Trust, but they also do ocean stuff as well. So I've raised quite a bit of money for them in the past. I do it every year on my birthday. On Facebook, you can do an organized fundraiser, and I always raise money for them. And they're amazing because they tell you where it's going. And David Attenborough is a pretty amazing environmentalist as well. So
yeah,
think of them as well.
and I also think that there's people you can get behind to try and really get into the hardcore industry part of it. But the people that make the biggest difference is you, like your choices, right? So So if everybody really steps back and goes, do I really, like, am I going to die if I don't eat fish? Or am I going to die if I, just really super slow down on the amount of fish, or try a vegan fish alternative or something like that? That it's the public that drives that market. It's the public that is driving the constant depletion of the ocean. And I'm sure lots of people have probably read the blog that I wrote about sustainability, but and I'm sure that everybody that's watching this is our animal lovers. But if you know people, or people that are in your family, or people that really couldn't care about whales, or couldn't care about dolphins or seals or anything like that, or even maybe don't even believe in global warming. But I really think that's something that people don't understand, is they think that if we don't have fish, we still will have an ocean, and we won't. If we don't have fish, then we don't have an ocean, or we don't have a live ocean. And without these larger mammals fertilizing, for a better choice of words, the phytoplankton and the algae, we don't have oxygen. So the phytoplankton and the algae produces like 80% of our oxygen. And the way the actual carbon is dealt with within the ocean to give us better air, and to keep us literally breathing, is the movement of fish. So the movement of schools of fish, the movement of large masses like whales breaching and things like that. It's beautiful. But for people that really don't give a hoot about that part of why, like the humanity of that, if they really don't care, they gotta understand, if you care about your grandkids, if you care about your lineage, if you care about the human race, we have to really smarten up, because the ocean is going towards extinction. It's not a fad, or it's not a, when I was following this years and years ago, everybody would just say I'm a Greenpeacer or whatever. And it's not that. It's really, really not that. Like, scientifically, we are heading for not being able to breathe very well if we don't do something with our oceans. And I don't think that any amount of fish, or any amount of going out and consuming fish at the level that we consume it, or even thinking about not consuming it at all for a while, it's not even it's not a humanitarian, like, it's not a heartfelt thing for some people. It's an existence thing. It's an extinction thing, and that includes the extinction of people. So I know that might sound kind of hardcore for some people, but it is actually the truth. And that's why, again, there really isn't such a thing as sustainability, because when we look at things like the temperature of the ocean, you might think a small percentage, like 1% or 2%, is not a big deal. But when you're looking at a group of things like krill, and they're already at 60% of what they were, and then you add that to 2%, and then you look at all the animals that feed on krill, and those animals being sustainable for the entire diversity of the thing. You can't just look at, oh, well, this is this, and this is that, and this is calamari, and this is krill, and this is mussels, and this is fish, and this is that. It's just ridiculous. For anyone out there that knows anything about, the gut microbiome or anything like that, the diversity in the entirety of the ecosystem is ultimately important, and we know nothing about it. We are so ignorant of it, and we're just learning now. And what we're learning is that we're already on that train wreck, and there is no stopping that train wreck by sustainably fishing. We have to stop fishing. And I know that lots of people are probably rolling their eyes right now and thinking, oh my God, but it's true. And even it's amazing how fast things will recover. So this isn't just doom and gloom and everybody going, oh my God, what are we going to do? There's nothing really to do other than to listen to nature. We got to actually smarten up and stop and listen to nature, what is trying to teach us and tell us. When we went through the first lockdown of COVID, and we thought that this particular strain of turtles, which are vital for the oceans, they were, I think, I don't even remember how many were left, but there was next to nothing. They were basically saying that they were extinct. And for just 2 weeks of people not being able to leave their houses, 300,000 of these turtles were born on a beach in India. So the fact that the ocean is so resilient, and if we leave it alone, it will come back. We don't have to do anything. We basically don't have to do anything. And if we leave it alone, we're also not supporting I don't even know how many tons, it's in my blog, of pollution that goes into the air from the vessels that are actually out there. So not only are we destroying our oxygen by removing the fish and the phytoplankton out of the oceans, but we're contributing to it by, I think the amount of vessels, what was it, Stephanie, like 20 billion cars or something, I don't even remember, but
Wow.
they're producing that much emission. The sea vessels in themselves are producing that much. So we're just double whamming it. So we just need to just chillax a little bit and try and just let the oceans heal themselves, because 100% they can. Like, all the scientists are saying that it's incredible how fast that they can recover. So we really can do something. It's not doom and gloom and we can't do anything and our kids are going to not be able to breathe and all this. We can actually do a lot. So yes, Charlie and Larry, there are lots of things that we can support, but I think we also have to remind ourselves that we only just have to become involved. One person has to become involved and make a choice. And it's huge. It's as big as these companies, because we are the people that are driving those companies.
Thanks, Julie.
You're welcome.
Totally respect that it's the bigger picture, right? That's important here. And you choose by what you decide to bring into your home.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Larry and Charlie. It's about 5 a.m. in Dubai. Thanks for joining us.
Aw, you guys are awesome.
Can we do Q&A here with attendees that are online with us now? We've got quite a few. Maybe we can buzz through a few here.
I'm just gonna say too, I'm gonna probably have my crew for the barn coming in to check my horses. So my dog's probably gonna lose his mind in a few minutes. So I'll just mute myself.
Sure thing, Julie. Hey, we all got dogs and cats and horses, and there's a question about the rosemary oil, the rosemary extract, excuse me, that's used in Potent-Sea. Can we talk a little bit about that? And there's a few community members that are concerned because they have dogs that suffer from epilepsy. Jenna, could you talk about the amount that's actually in Potent-Sea?
Sure. So rosemary extract is added to the oil as an antioxidant. So it's in there to make sure that the oil stays of the highest quality and is the best thing that you can be giving your pets. So it is in there for a reason. When you look at how much rosemary is in there per serving, you're looking at about like 0.03% of the formulation is rosemary extract. So that's like just under 3 milligrams in 1 milliliter of product. And when you're looking at rosemary extract, there's a lot that goes in it. It's not just one thing. Rosemary extract is made up of a variety of compounds, carnosic acid and carnosol. Those are functional antioxidants, but there's also a lot of other other compounds in rosemary extract. So there's some other phenolic acids. There's also some terpenes and flavonoids in there that all serve a purpose in that rosemary product. So when you are thinking of rosemary extract, you have to remember it's more than just one thing, and it is a very small percentage of the formulation. Sarah, do you want to speak to the epilepsy side of it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's a little bit trickier because it does also depend on, causation and medications and what your vet is doing with your animal in that regard. So, and then how severe their situation is. So the best thing to do would be to take that information that Jenna's just given, maybe Steph, if you can throw that in the chat, so that you can review it with your vet based on their specific plan. And just so you can get a little bit of perspective, I have seizures, which are idiopathic in nature, which means that they are the cause is unknown, and I can actually use like rosemary essential oil and rosemary, like I can eat rosemary and all of that in quite large amounts, and I don't have an issue. So I think it's really an individual thing, and in the amount that it's in this product is a very small amount. So it would have to be a really sensitive animal for it to be an issue, but it's always a good idea to check with your vet.
Thank you very much. Peter's got a question. Congrats, and he ordered 2. His question is, why did you choose a tincture over an airless pump? Julie?
I'm gonna let Jenna talk about that one because we talked about that a lot. So, and Jenna's been involved with many companies in helping navigate that ability to, for me, again, it's trying to put out something that is going to be the healthiest and the safest, and not without any concern.
For sure. Yeah, so airless pumps are definitely a dosage option that you see out there sometimes. I'm not a huge fan of them because for as much as they are airless, oftentimes they're in plastic, and plastic compared to glass is permeable to oxygen to some degree. So you are getting, it's not as great a barrier as glass. You are risking an increase in oxidation in your product, which means your product can go rancid faster. Also, there, even with an airless pump, there is always some air, a small amount that's drawn in that can potentially damage the product. So it's not my favorite packaging for preserving a product. In addition, the pumps can get gummed up. They can be messy, challenging to use. The tincture bottle, where it's glass, it provides a nice barrier against oxygen. It's dark in color to prevent UV light from oxidizing the product. And also the dropper makes it easy to measure your dose and be confident that you're giving your pet what you intend to give them.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, Julie.
You're welcome. But the big thing is we're trying to move away from plastic as much as we can do, right? So, and it's the same reason, Peter, it's the same reason we don't put any of our homeopathics in plastic. It's the same reason that we don't put our mushrooms, or microbiome doesn't put mushrooms in plastic. It's just from a perspective of leaching, a perspective of just even glass is just so much. It has a really long history and track record of keeping things fresher and contained in a healthier and safer way.
Thank you. Christy has a question. Julie, do you recommend doing a blood test before adding this new oil if the animal's already using Phyto Synergy?
No, I would mean, if you want to, there's never, I mean, I'm a bit of a blood fanatic. I love looking at blood, but you definitely don't have to. And again, it's different than phytosynergy. So, you can, we talked about this too, about just like the diversity of having mineral, like phytoplankton has minerals, and it has amino acids, and it has all kinds of things like that. So, using phytoplankton along with the algae, or one day on, one day off, like one day phytosynergy, one day algae, but you can use them both because they're one's an extracted product and one's a whole product.
Perfect. Danielle's got a question. Oh, this is interesting. Is there also a clean source of EPA and DHA for humans? Can humans take your new product?
I can comment on that. Yeah. There are brands out there, plant-based omega-3 from algae for humans as well. There's absolutely no reason why a human couldn't take the Adored Beast product, but the bottle wouldn't last you very long as a human. So if you are looking for some options for humans, maybe I can, I don't know, Steph, if I send you some, are you able to pop them in the chat, or would that work for you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or I can post it to our community tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
But again, there's nothing that Adored Beast doesn't have that we can't take, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's my big thing. If I won't eat it, or I won't feed it to my animals, then I'm not going to put it on the market. So I'm taking it, and so your question is it human grade? Can humans take it? Yes, they can, but we can't say that it's for humans because we're not supposed to. Basically, that's the biggest thing. Pardon?
I'm also taking it.
And your horses are taking it.
Yeah.
All right. Bozina, she is hyped about the product. She uses a plant-based omega-3 herself. When it comes to her cats, she needs to know if it's bioavailable for them, given it's a plant. Now, this is from earlier, so we've already kind of explained that it's not exactly a plant, but can we talk about the bioavailability for our feline friends?
I could speak to that. There is actually a really great study on cats using this exact oil. So you looked at cats and kittens and pregnant cats as well. And they found that it is bioavailable with no reported adverse effects. So it's definitely well studied in cats, and nothing to report on that would be negative.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenna. Okay. A question about iodine levels. Does this product have iodine? If so, can you talk about the iodine levels? And would it be safe for a multi-ailment kitty? Do we have any information about iodine?
There should not be any iodine in it because of the way that it is cultured.
Yeah.
So I can't speak to the cat itself, but the product shouldn't have any iodine in it.
Thank you.
If you're worried, if you have a cat with hyperthyroidism, I don't think that that's something that you have to worry about. Yeah, it shouldn't.
No, but we can, you know what, we can, like, as a formulator, we can dig into that a little bit more. So whoever that is, just if Kaylin or Suzanne, if you can do that, that would be great. Because I know that phytoplankton doesn't have iodine. So with this, I don't know if it does have traces, but I don't think it would be, I don't think it's very much. I can't think on the top of my head exactly what the amount is, but definitely we'll get that for you.
Thank you.
That's a good question.
Okay, so Judy's got a great question here. Does using this mean that fish protein is no longer required? And we've talked about this a little bit. Does it replace phytoplankton? We talked about that earlier. Since it is algae, so her animal has a fish sensitivity. Can her animal also consume it without any trouble?
Well, it's a similar question, right? So, if it's sensitivity, meaning that they get itchy feet or they start to, itch their ears or something like that, I would definitely try it because, first of all, the question, does this mean it can replace fish protein? Is that fish protein is no longer required? Well, we're saying that it replaces the omega-3 and the EPA, the DHA. That's what we're saying. And it replaces that with fish. Does it replace phytoplankton? It's different because the oil is extracted. Phytoplankton is in its whole. So it has, like Jenna was saying, phytoplankton has amino acids, it has minerals, it has different types of things in it. And if your animal isn't super anaphylactically sensitive to fish, there's no harm in trying it and trying it and seeing if there is a reactivity to it.
Thank you, Julie. Leanne, I put the amount of rosemary in the chat. I'll do that again. Just trying to find some broad questions that are going to help the most people.
And while you're looking, I'm looking at one. Has research confirmed that plant-based omega-3 is the same nutritionally as fish? This one, yes. The one that we've put out, yes. It's scientifically proven to be the same as fish-based omega-3s.
Thanks, Julie. Now we talked about rotation as well. Did you recommend using this along with Phyto Synergy? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can do rotation. Phyto Synergy, until we have our final study, we're not gonna say that it has as much EPA and DHA in it. It's just different. It's really, really different. And that's what I keep trying to sort of bring back to people. This is a whole cell organism. So it's in its own classification, away from fish and away from squid and away from beef and away from it's a different animal. So the question is, you can give it together because it is different. One's an oil, an extracted oil, and one is a whole food. Can you rotate them? Definitely. But if you're looking for, let's say, an EPA and DHA for your dog's arthritis, let's just use that as an example, as a really strong anti-inflammatory, then I would use the oil. If you're looking for something more with a really, really high antioxidant level to fight free radicals, superoxide dismutase, which is huge in our strain of phytoplankton, would be the way to go. So using them both isn't going to hurt because they work very differently. And if you're going to alternate them, I wouldn't go more than every, like, one day one day another. And if you're doing it specifically for something like arthritis or heart disease, then I would stay with the oil.
Thank you. Here's one about kidney disease, and is it safe to use in an animal that is having difficulties with their kidneys?
Yeah.
Anonymous, yes.
1,000,000,000,000,000%. It's that EPA and DHA is also really highly studied for kidney health, and is often recommended by veterinarians for that reason as well. It actually helps to regulate. I have a horse that has some kidney related concerns, and I notice as I put him on it, his blood work that he just had done was actually more normalized than it is just with his gut support. Right? He's on the gut soothe and everything else, but it further normalizes his kidney values. So I have no doubt at all. I've seen that happen even with fish oil, and this is such a clean version of these nutrients, that you're taking the stress of the toxic part of the fish oils out, but you're still giving the EPA and DHA, which is the anti-inflammatory, especially the EPA, which in a degenerative form of chronic kidney disease where there is a lot of inflammation, can bring down that inflammation, and it can actually slow down the rate of the process of the chronic kidney disease. So yes, definitely.
And so often, you know, when we're looking at kidney disease in cats, we're looking at you know, supporting the heart and supporting the thyroid and that whole vicious circle, right? So it's interesting that it supports the kidneys and it supports the heart. So that synergistic process in the systems of the body are definitely it just brings us closer again about how everything's connected, you know, how everything is definitely connected.
Thank you. One more here, perhaps this is for you, Julie, about potency and giving it long term. Can we talk about that?
So can you give this product every day for long periods? I can't see why not. Jenna, can you, I mean, if people
No,
are,
as long as you're following the dosage, if you follow the dosage instructions, there's no reason that you can't give it long term. And I mean, depending on your pet's health, your vet may recommend giving a higher dosage. So I mean, obviously, go with what your vet says.
Yeah. The how often that you would give it, like just like Jenna said, we're basing our recommendations on an average thing, and sometimes some vets will recommend even a higher dose for certain things like either heart or whatever. So if you have an animal that has a specific pathology, it would be really helpful to ask your veterinarian how much they actually want the animal on.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Jenna, Sarah. Any other takeaways here from either of you? Like, if there's one key point that people need to really keep top of mind when it comes to thinking about omegas, what's something that we should just be mindful of or have top of mind when we're choosing products?
Say that again. Repeat that again.
If there's one takeaway that each of you could give to us to, you know, take with us next time we're at the shop looking at supplements or choosing omegas, what's one thing that you really want to hit home or stick with each of us from this session?
You guys
I
can
can start.
Jenna, you got yours?
Yeah. So forgive me my nerdiness here. I'm kind of like an omega-3 junkie. I've got a lot of products. I've tried a lot of products. So there's a few things I would keep in mind. I've tried some good ones. I've tried some bad ones. And the first is the packaging. So make sure that if you're buying an omega-3, you want to make sure it's in a dark color package. Ideally, it's packaged in glass. And when you get home, you want to make sure after it's open that you're putting it in the fridge. The other thing I would look for is brands that are willing to share their third-party testing results. So, you know, the analytical test to show that the product is pure and the product is clean. And then specific to this product, I think we highlighted it, but I want to drive it home that this is a really cool product because it is algae and it comes with all these sustainability benefits, but also it's unique. Most algae products that you see out there only contain DHA, and that's just the nature of algae. It produces a lot of DHA, not much EPA, but this strain is able to produce EPA, which is a bit of a game changer in the algal world. So make sure when you are looking for a product that it does have EPA and DHA in it. So I think this product definitely has a lot going for it.
Sarah?
Well, my biggest thing is I'm always trying to same as Julie. Julie's my mentor, so I've definitely been influenced by her quite a lot. And
it wouldn't matter that you were 16 when you started working.
Yeah, so you're basically like my mom. So, so yeah, I have always thinking about how I can keep my animals healthy, but not contribute to basically my own demise and the demise of our beautiful environment and our beautiful ocean. And I think the ocean is a really special place that is so misunderstood and so we know a lot more about the land ecosystems than we do about the ocean. And every day there's new species being discovered and new aspects of the ocean that are uncovered that we didn't even know were there, and they've been there for millions of years, and until we came along they were pretty undisturbed. So I do feel like that is something that you can do as a consumer to always be I heard it once from I think it was on a Zach Bush lecture that I watched. There's a really amazing lady on there, and she said, whenever I buy something, I think of the fingerprint I'm leaving behind with that purchase. So, you can follow the trail of like, where does it come from? And how is that affecting our natural world? So if you take that and you apply it to every single thing that you buy, be it shoes or supplements or whatever, I think it's a really noble cause, and it's a really amazing way that you can make a really big difference.
Thanks, Sarah. Julie, what's one thing we have to keep in mind?
With omegas?
Absolutely.
Well, I just glanced down while I was listening to everybody, and there's someone down here. It says, do horses metabolize differently? I know fish oil is used for horse supplements, but I've always felt that it's wrong because isn't species appropriate. Can you talk about this? So is that Lauren? I'm really, really happy that you said that, because I think that is the most important thing that a takeaway should be, is you need to ask questions, and you can't just take everything out there as gospel, especially when it comes to sustainability. Sustainability is the next word, natural, or the next it's a marketing, it's turned into marketing. It's terrible. So when you see something that says sustainable, you need to question it. And when you see someone saying, oh, here, give horses fish oil, you definitely need to question that, because we had this conversation about how, like even green lip mussel, they know so little about what they're doing, that for them to say that it's sustainable, they don't even know what category it fits in. They don't know if it fits into aquatics or it fits into fisheries. They don't even know, they don't know enough about it. And anything, when we look at like mad cow disease and how mad cow disease came about with feeding cows protein that cows shouldn't be eating, and we look at feeding horses fish, or horses bovine collagen, or horses anything like that, and when we look at sustainable fish, ocean fish farms, right? So it's sustainable because we have these fish in this net, and we're not taking wild fish, and we're like, okay, well, what does that actually mean? And I think it's something like, it takes, I don't even know how many tons of fish, ground up fish, to feed farm salmon. Like, like how is that sustainable? How is it sustainable when we, when we're looking even at COVID, or we're looking at the avian flu, or we're looking at any of these things where scientists are actually thinking, where did this come from? Like the wet markets, and what are we doing when we crowd things together, and what kind of diseases are we getting when we put thousands and millions of animals all jammed up in the same thing? Well, when we look at green lip mussel, we're almost looking in that category. We're looking at these wonderful pristine waters, but the amount that's there that's actually going down and disturbing the bed, the ocean bed, which is like essential for everything in that environment. And maybe it's sustainable for what? Sustainable for the oceans or sustainable for the industry? Because it's the same as sustainable forestry. It's not sustainable for wildlife. It's not sustainable for the air. It's not sustainable for the soil. It's not sustainable for other things that grow in the forest. It's sustainable for the forestry industry, the paper pulp industry and lumber industry. So there's two different kinds of sustainability. There's sustainability for the environment, and then there's sustainability for the industry, in which removes that natural product from the earth. So when you're looking at anything, whether it's omegas, whether it's herbs, whether it's mushrooms, it doesn't matter. What does that sustainable mean? Like, you got to dig in and not just look at something at face value anymore, which is super, super sad, because I want to think that when people put something out there, it's real. But unfortunately, this industry, this natural industry and sustainable industry and all this kind of stuff, everybody's jumping on the same bandwagon. And we need to be aware of what that looks like even underneath the label. So that would be my takeaways is what is sustainability? What does that mean? Sustainable to whom? The industry or the environment? Because often most of the time, it's not both. It can't be both. It's one or the other in today's world. It's unfortunate, but again, I don't want to leave this as a doom and gloom, because it's really not doom and gloom. We can do so much. I don't want my dog pulling my computer off. We can do so much. Like, just one person can make the hugest difference in how you feel and the person that you tell. And because that's what pushes industry. That's what pushes consumerism. It's what pushes everything. We're the ones that are going to make the difference. So read your labels, understand your labels, and question whether that sustainability is for the industry or sustainability for the planet.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. What a fabulous event. I think I've got to look over my notes here before bed, because I was jotting things down almost the entire time.
Yeah, and I'm so lucky to be surrounded by everybody. Jenna's is just like an incredible, like walking through a door of like fermentation tank. I mean that in the best way possible. It's just like everything I say, it's like, really, like, she's just so brilliant and has that really great brain that isn't just compartmentalized as well. She looks at things from a very high level. And Sarah, this product isn't just a product. It's just like when we launched Microbiome too. This product isn't a product, it's a project. And the project is for the greater good of everything, including ourselves and your pets and our community and talk about sustainability. we're not going to have this community if we don't have the environment, because everybody that's in here and everybody that's working within Adored Beast and other natural health industries, if we ruin the environment, we are destroying our own industry. So I want to thank everybody that has come tonight to listen to this, and everybody that really, I was like blown away when we launched this and we sold out in like the first morning. And that just, to me, not from a perspective of, oh wow, this is awesome, this is going to be a great product, but it just blew me away to think that people are out there that really care, that really seriously care about making a difference. And that just meant the world to me. So thanks everybody for your support, and Stephanie and Suzanne and Kaylin and everybody from Adored Beast. I couldn't move down this path of trying to always do this if I didn't have such awesome support.
Well, we love you, Julie, and you're totally our rock. So we're so grateful to work with you every day. Really quick before I let everyone go here, I didn't mention this at all today, and shame on me for that.
Henry.
But the Potent-Sea product is 20% off right now. If you use code OMEGA20 at checkout, we'll get a bottle out to you as soon as we can. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Okay, bye. Thanks
Bye,
everybody.
guys.
Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.